Thank you, Thank you, Kashish, and thank you, Dr. Parik, for this opportunity. It's quite an interesting and quite relevant topic for today's discussion. As you understand, Kashish, just 1 second. Are my slides visible?
Yes, sir. Your slides are visible, sir.
Thank you so much. So, as we understand, we are definitely in quite challenging times, and almost the first wave was almost getting finished, and by the time we are already hit badly with the second wave. And on one side, we are grappling with beds, ventilators, and oxygen supply. And on the other side, as oncology community, we have our share of problems. We have our share of questions, and we have our anxiety. We have our apprehension about how our patients are going to be managed. Is our mortality going to be higher in this particular situation? What about vaccination? What about cancer? Especially here, we are going to talk a bit more on lung cancer management, diagnostic dilemmas, bit of treatment. So that's quite an interesting discussion, which I am looking forward to. And thank you for our panelists today, Dr. Smriti, Dr. Indu, Dr. Bowman, and Dr. Rakesh is with us. So let me take you to the next slide. So these are the today's numbers, what I could take out from the system today. And these are quite a staggering numbers, as you understand. These are the new number of patients, 260,800 plus. And these numbers are only going to rise in next few days. So we as, again, oncophysicians, radiation oncologists, surgical oncologists, we all need to be prepared for this onslaught by COVID for sure. Now, when you try and see the importance in terms of search from PubMed in the recent times, and if you talk about last wave, and you could easily see that the majority of the search was made on COVID-19 and a bit also on lung cancer. It has been steady all throughout. Maybe it had a bit of a dip. But when you talk about combination of a search that is COVID-19 plus lung cancer, and you realize that the numbers are quite staggeringly high in the last time. So it does tell you that it is an important issue to be discussed. It is an important issue which as a community, as a physician community, we are definitely looking at, and we want more answers in this field. So with this background, let me start by asking Dr. Smriti this. Does cancer background pose patients at a higher risk of getting COVID?
Yes, the data has shown that those patients with cancer are at a higher risk of getting COVID. And of course, it also depends on what is the phase in which that cancer patient is. For example, whether they have been diagnosed with cancer or they are finished with their treatment and, are on a follow-up basis. So the cancer background does pose a higher risk of getting COVID. One thing is because they're immunosuppressed. Second thing is their visits to the hospital for various procedures, whether they be diagnostic procedures or for the treatment itself. So all this exposes them to the risk of COVID.
All right. Dr. Indu, do you feel that the mortality seems to be higher in COVID patients who have underlying background of cancer, whether they are on treatment or previously treated patients?
So as ma'am rightly said, that definitely the incidence as well as the mortality rate is, as per some literature, it is around 5 times higher in cancer patients as compared to non-cancer patients. And the reasons being that most of the patients with cancer, they have so many other comorbidities like cardiac diseases, diabetes mellitus. They have increased risk of their coagulation profile is deranged, they're immunocompromised, they're on steroids. And as ma'am also said, that they have more frequent visits to the hospital, and most of the patients in the COVID period have been coming in advanced stages rather than being detected in earlier stages. So patients are not getting their treatments done on time. They're reporting to the hospitals late. Even if diagnosed, they're not taking treatments. And the treatment facility is also not accessible. So all these factors have also contributed to increased mortality of cancer patients in these COVID times.
Okay. Yes. So there have been mixed data, I would say, over here, that we had some papers which had shown higher incidence, and there are other papers which had mentioned that the incidence seems to be the same as compared to the general population. yet the mortality seems to be much higher, especially when we talk about cancer background. So Dr. Dabar, are we seeing more early lung cancer patients or incidental diagnosis of lung cancer, considering that the CTs are done almost for each and every patient?
Yeah, what you said is right. We are seeing more mediastinal masses. I saw 1 or 2 Hodgkin's patients right now. They had done a screening for COVID. They found out a mass and then biopsy done Hodgkin's. Of course, we had to wait till everything gets cleared. So we are seeing mediastinal masses. I have seen a couple of them when they were screened for COVID. But what the literature says is, yes, lung cancer and hematologic malignancy have the highest incidence of contacting COVID during their visits to the hospital. And what I have seen is that the treatment whole gets delayed. Now, the other day I saw one patient who had small cell lung cancer. He was diagnosed. He was detected. He was fine. And he had some mass in the colon. Somebody had to do colonoscopy. This came positive, COVID. So in the 2 weeks that got delayed, he became breathless. His saturation dropped down, although he came out of COVID. So what I want to say, the whole treatment gets delayed and the patient is in real bad shape now.
Sure, we'll get on to that. So these are some of the information what we have. Of course, I couldn't get the full text of it being an abstract presentation. So this was one of the studies from the Spain, which mentioned that there is increased lung cancer mortality, especially during the time of COVID pandemic. And very interestingly, there is a decrease in the diagnosis. Of course, it's a retrospective study over here. And it's another interesting study, again, a retrospective data, which does mention that the number of patients with lung cancer who require hospitalization are far more, especially when you talk about COVID-19 infection. And look at these mortality numbers. We talk about normally around 2 or 3% in the general population, and here it is staggering 25%. So this definitely tells us that lung cancer patients are at much higher risk of mortality, complication, prolonged hospital stay, and so on and so forth. So there is definitely a bit of a struggle which is happening over here.
Can I just add something?
Sure.
Actually, you were saying about all the conflicting data, but there is a meta-analysis which has been published, and they have shown that the mortality is 26% amongst cancer patients as opposed to 2 to 3% in the meta-analysis. So they have analyzed all the data and come up with this figure. Though I don't think, so many practicing medical oncologists are there. We have not seen that sort of mortality. I don't know, like the other comment.
I'll just add, this mortality they said is along with comorbidities if they have, then the chances of mortality is higher. When a lung cancer patient has got any of these comorbidities. That paper also it is mentioned, one of this.
Correct. So in terms of mortality, yes, absolutely. We are just discussing about more incidence, and that was one thought what we had discussed already. So I think Dr. Smriti had already mentioned most of these points about the reasons of increased complications, more protracted course, and for that matter, mortality, frequent visits, the daycare outbreaks, delay in diagnosis, delay in treatments, disruption of cancer services. Very peculiarly in India, at times non-availability of transport, something which I had seen, and that is one of the reasons why the treatment got delayed. So all these factors have definitely contributed. So Dr. Rakesh, have you seen any other factors apart from this which have really led to increased mortality in cancer patients?
The biggest thing which I had come across is, no doubt the number of CT scan has increased, but mainly the radiologists are focusing on the COVID score.
Okay.
Few of my patients, they have been catched up for COVID, treated for COVID, and finally, as a final diagnosis, they come up with mets in the lung or lung mass. And the situation is grim because you can't blame anyone. The radiologists are overburdened. Maybe that may be the reason, but the number of CT scan they are performing daily and to scrutinize everything on the basis of COVID is really not good for all of us.
All right. I think that is also something which I had also seen a couple of times in my close relatives where the meds were quite tiny and they got missed. Till the time the lungs got cleared, we couldn't appreciate it. So it can happen. This is one of the surveys which Dr. Parikh had done, and he had shared these slides with me. So this was very interesting observation. What was the effect of COVID-19 on your first wave, especially on your lung cancer practice? And here you can easily make out that there are, quite a few doctors had responded saying that their practice had reduced. Now it does tell you that probably it is something to do with the possibly the patient not turning up. That is very likely happening. And I am sure most of us have probably been part of this survey, and most of us probably would have a similar kind of pie when we talk about patient visits, especially when you are talking about the lung cancer patients. So about diagnostic, I think we have briefly touched upon it. But Dr. Smriti, now we are seeing almost the GGOs, right? GGOs are seen in almost all the discussion what we are talking to as far as COVID patients are concerned. But we have patients who are on immunotherapy who can develop pneumonitis. We have patients on radiation who can develop radiation pneumonitis. We have sometimes the early some low-grade lipidic adenocarcinomas which can present as some small patchy progression. So do you consider it's quite a challenging situation for all of us?
Yes, it is a very challenging situation. And of course, nowadays, especially first coming to the diagnostic part, as you raise the various clinical scenarios like those on immune checkpoint inhibitors or those on radiation, where in the differential diagnosis, if they develop fever and they get worsening symptoms, always raises the possibility of, whether they are having a coexisting COVID infection. And there is a lot of overlap between the two. And sometimes we just have to interact with our radiologists and also the infectious diseases specialists, and also depend on the RT-PCR reports or the gene expert reports to come to a conclusion whether we are, dealing with a COVID-19 infection as well. So we use all these things to make a difference between the two. And that is how the challenges, occur when we are treating the patients in these various scenarios.
Okay. So Dr. Dabar, as far as medical oncology therapeutics are concerned in lung cancer patients, what are the challenges what you had come across, and what are the possible solutions which probably you might have thought or put forward for your patients?
Challenges comes in the first diagnosis also, delayed diagnosis, delayed treatment. Very few patients whom we get, stage 3A disease, whether they are operable or not. Then most of the people would say, no, this is not the right time to operate. So in fact, for one of our patients, we started the patient on neoadjuvant chemotherapy because borderline operability, people would say, don't operate. So unfortunately, the response is not there. The patient gets progressed. So these are borderline cases suffer the most, I feel. Very bad cases, if they are EGFR positive, they escape everything because you just give them the tablets and they are all okay. But mainly I see is on the borderline patients whom we could diagnose early and treat them properly, or whom could have been operated. But these are the patients who suffer the most in this COVID.
And what about the palliative chemotherapies, which are, there are a lot of debates over here whether we need to continue, shall we delay, or shall we put them switch to oral TKIs for some time, whether they are most appropriate or not.
As you know, oral TKI, there are definite indications, and if the indication is there, obviously we'll put them on oral TKI. But if the palliative chemotherapy is, the patient is getting a benefit, I think so, it is worthwhile continuing the treatment. The patient is benefiting from palliative care. But if they are getting a stable disease or there is no major response, then I think so we can give them a supportive care type of thing also. Then we know we are never going to cure.
Okay. Dr. Indu, what about radiation challenges, and what are the possible remedies from your side?
So the major challenges for radiation is that radiation is not available at every place. It's not available in close and small centers. So many patients who used to travel a lot, even from long distances for treatment, are not coming. And in government hospitals, like in Delhi, in most of the government hospitals, radiation facilities are not working. So many patients are not getting treatment because of non-availability of services or non-access to the center of treatment. Number two, because radiation is a prolonged treatment, like for most of the patients, usually 30 fractions are given, but now we are doing a lot of hypofractionation as well. But hypofractionation is a problem if you are doing concomitant chemoradiation. If it's only radiation, then yes, you can still do hypofractionation, but otherwise, for concomitant chemoradiation, hypofractionation is not possible. And third issue is that even on radiation, because the same machine is being used for all the patients, there is always a risk of cross-infection. So there is a problem of storing all the masks in busy centers, because earlier they could be stacked one upon the other, but now we cannot do that. So all the masks have to be separated. Before every patient, we have to change the sheets and put sterilized sheets for treatment. The technologists who are treating the patients, they are using masks and face shields, but the patient is not ready to wear face masks. So it is becoming very difficult for us to treat the patients on protracted basis. And in the waiting area also, like we don't allow any patient attendants to be in the waiting area, in the radiation waiting area. But every day there is a chaos on that in spite of putting written instructions. So we are trying to give hypofractionation wherever possible. And like for palliative cases, say for hemopsis, if we would get 13-10 fractions, we are now opting more for 20 and 5, or say 8-gray single session, depending on if the patient can come for treatment. So preventing cross-infection for the patients, as well as taking care of your technologists and the team for radiation, is a major challenge. And if there is only one machine, then you cannot treat COVID patients. So the centers where they have 2 machines, they can dedicate one bunker only for COVID patients and one bunker for non-COVID patients. But for smaller centers or centers with only one machine, treating COVID patients is also a problem. So there are a lot of challenges. We have to mix and match and make a balance between all of these. That's
right. Thank you, Indu, for this elaborate answer over here. Now, we are just short of time. I think this is something what we had discussed already. A brief about vaccination. Dr. Rakesh, what are your recommendations about vaccination for our patients for lung cancer? Let us say for lung cancer.
I think it's better if they can go for vaccination. That's good. And if they are previously vaccinated, that is going to help us in the further management part. The biggest thing which I am facing is, once the diagnosis of lung cancer is confirmed, most of the patients now are becoming much more restless to start the treatment. Many of the patients are not willing to wait even for the mutation reports. They say you start the treatment and decide later on. I'm not sure what others are facing, but this is what I am facing.
So, Dr. Smriti, when would you recommend vaccine for the patient? At the earliest, or what is your protocol as of now?
Yeah. So, we know that all these are not live vaccines, and they are all, from the spike proteins or whatever, inactivated part of the virus. So if you go by what is the experience with other vaccines given to cancer patients, like the flu vaccine, etc., we know that they are safe and they can be administered to cancer patients as well. So even if they are on therapy, we do recommend that they should go for the vaccine. The optimal timing has not been, there's no data to support this, but between 2 courses, they can be offered the vaccine. In solid tumors, it is easier. In hematologic malignancies, it becomes a bit difficult. We always explain to them that their response to the vaccine would be inferior to that from the normal population, but whatever benefit they could get, they should give. Those who are an immune checkpoint inhibitors, there was not much data available, but it has been said that in some of the webinars from experts that it can be given to patients who are on immune checkpoint inhibitors as well. And of course, after therapy, there is no issue, they can take the vaccine. But even during therapy, I do recommend that they should go for the vaccine.
Absolutely. And so we do believe that despite we still not having enough safety and efficacy data in the cancer patient especially, but there has been enough suggestions and recommendations by various organizations to definitely push for vaccination as much as possible. So that is quite obvious over here. Dr. Dabar, about this question, what your patient must be asking, what about the thrombotic state of the cancer, and especially with the vaccination, where there are a lot of, few reports of clotting tendencies?
Our patients are on treatment. So when they are on treatment, they do not generally have a thrombotic state. In between, means rather than asking that most of the people ask when we should take the vaccine. But everybody is more enthusiastic nowadays to take the vaccine. So usually, this thrombotic episode is really what at least whomever few patients we have vaccinated and I've seen. I have not seen at least. So it is very difficult to comment on that. But I usually say those are very low risk, as would happen with any other allergic reaction which you may get with penicillin or something like that. So we don't take this as a serious issue not to vaccinate.
Okay, so this question for Dr. Rakesh, Covaxin or Covishield?
Whichever is available. I'm not sure.
Answer because I think I'm fed up with this question.
I say whichever is easily accessible, please go for it.
Okay.
I'm not sure about the answer.
So I think we have a couple of questions, couple of minutes, I believe. But just to wrap it up, I think there has been some suggestions, and the suggestion says that I think the COVID vaccines for patients with the cancer, the benefit definitely likely to outweigh the risk over here, and something what all of our panelists have quite emphatically put forward to. These are some of the recommendations by the NCCN, and here you can easily make a mention about, see the mention about solid tumor malignancies, and whenever the vaccine is available, one should proceed with the vaccination for all the patients, despite limited data, but I think there is a very strong case to advocate vaccine for all the patients. So this is question I think Dr. Rakesh has definitely answered, and I think we won't have that answer for I would say maybe next decade or so for that reason.
Can I just one statement?
Please.
I read somewhere that before giving vaccination, we should ensure that the TLC count is more than 500 and lymphocytes should be more than 200. So I ensure that if any patient is on radiation and they want to take treatment, because sometimes if the blood counts may drop down, then the risk of toxicity would be more and the treatment would be interrupted.
Okay.
So ANC should, the absolute neutrophil count should be good. That is what.
Yeah, that is obviously.
ANC should be good.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think the points which come out through this discussion is definitely everybody has advocated for vaccination, monitoring our patients. Of course, as we discussed previously, these are challenging times. We have to educate our patients a lot. It's not easy. It's not easy for them also, and for that matter, of course, all the oncology colleagues of ours, where on one side they are also at risk of getting infections all the time, and yet they are doing their selfless service. So it is quite a challenging situation, as I would say. Yet there is always an opportunity over here to improvise ourselves, also adapt to the current circumstances, and eventually try and overcome this situation. So with this, I stop over here and I hand over the podium to the organizers.